My parents skipped my wedding for a beach sacrifice and sent me the bill. I replaced their blessing, blocked their side door toast, and made them choose keys or visiting hours. I'm Ryan, and 3 weeks before my wedding, my parents told me they wouldn't attend, then emailed me their flight and hotel invoice so the family could still be honored. They didn't say congratulations. When the save the date went out, they said, "What about inviting your brother? The one who turned every holiday into a hostage situation and hadn't spoken to me in 2 years unless he needed money." My fiancée, Paige, and I drew a clean line. No guests who make the room smaller. My parents called it a phase. Boundaries always look like rebellion to people who benefit from your blur. When I told them the guest list was final, my dad said they'd sit this one out to avoid drama. The same afternoon, my mom forwarded a confirmation email from a beach resort, 2 flights attached. Subject line, reimbursable, family obligation. I reread it twice. The way you reread a typo to make sure the world really chose that spelling. They were boycotting my vows and sending me the check. In our apartment, the wedding lived in stacks. Program drafts, place cards, the box of candles Paige found on sale and guarded like treasure. I held the invoice over the candles and felt something childish and hot climb my throat. I didn't want to fight on the internet. I wanted a witness who could read a line and call it by its name. So I printed the invoice, grabbed a pen, and circled the words reimbursable and family obligation. Then I wrote one sentence on a sticky note and pressed it to the top. Obligation is showing up, not sending a bill. I wasn't going to argue about invitations. I was going to put cost next to care and see which one looked like family in daylight. I sent my parents 3 lines. Clear, short, impossible to twist if they tried. Our guest list is final. You're welcome to come as you are. I won't reimburse a boycott. Within an hour, my phone lit up like a faulty string of lights. In the family thread, my mom posted a paragraph about how sad it is when children forget who paid for braces, and my dad added, "We're protecting your day from conflict you created." My cousin reacted with a heart because people love tidy sentences that don't cost them proximity. Meanwhile, my inbox showed a second forward from my mom. Resort activities, snorkeling, couples massage, sunset cruise. The dates overlapped our rehearsal dinner and ceremony exactly. They hadn't sat this one out. They traded it. I opened my files and started treating their story like a budget. On my desktop, I made a folder called Care versus Cost. Into it, I dropped the invoice, a screenshot of the thread where they said, "To avoid drama," and their hotel itinerary with anniversary suite starred. Then I pulled a message from my aunt, 3 screenshots deep, where my mom wrote, "We'll make the most of it either way." Either way meant whether or not their son married. The mimosas would happen at 10:30. Paige watched me arrange evidence like place cards and said, "Pick one person who actually tells the truth." So I called Grandma June. She picks up slow and lands true. I told her they weren't coming and that they'd sent me their bill like a punchline. She exhaled, small and sad, and said, "Honey, I'll be there even if I have to sell my treatment tickets." It came out wrong at first, and then I realized she meant the bus passes she uses to get to her appointments. She was offering me her time, not a receipt. After we hung up, my phone buzzed with a calendar alert I'd forgotten I set on better days. Final seating chart. I looked at the 2 empty chairs at the parents' table and imagined going through the ceremony with those spaces like open windows in a storm. I didn't want to perform grief for them. I wanted to seal the room so the love didn't leak. So I wrote rules for the week on a card and taped it to the fridge. No fights by text. No refunds for absences. No explanations longer than a sentence. Protect the joy like it's rented and due back in perfect condition. That night, my dad sent a private email titled Reconsider. It said if I apologized to my brother and added him last minute, they'd rejoin the family plan and attend. If I'd also cover their non-refundable resort charges as a gesture. He listed the amount like a contractor. I stared at the number until it lost meaning and then wrote one sentence back. Attendance is not for sale. At midnight, Paige and I sat on the floor and reworked the seating chart. We moved Grandma June to the front row, right aisle, where she could see me breathe. I left the parents' escort line blank. Not as a wound. As a fact, before bed, I scrolled the family thread one last time. Buried between polite daggers was a photo my mom had posted of the beach bar. Can't wait for this view. In the reflection of the glass rail, I could see my dad's face smiling. Not conflicted, not torn, already on vacation in his head. The invoice they sent me had sand in it. I turned off my phone and chose tomorrow's errand. Buy an extra boutonniere for the person who shows up because it's me, not because the program lists them. Grandma June would look good in flowers. The next morning, I decided empty chairs wouldn't get a cameo in my wedding film. I called Uncle David, my mom's brother, the one who taught me to tie a tie and to leave parties before I start narrating them. I asked if he would walk me down the aisle. He didn't ask why my own father wasn't, he said. Tell me where to stand and what hand to hold. Then I called the florist and added a corsage for Grandma June and a boutonniere for Uncle David. Front row priority, I told the coordinator. They're not placeholders. They're family. At rehearsal, the room felt like a set waiting for actors to make it real. Paige took her spot at the top of the aisle, and the string quartet found their first chord. I stood at the back with Uncle David, my arm tucked in his, and looked at the two untied chairs where my parents would have sat. The sight made my stomach swing, then stiffen. I wasn't rehearsing their absence. I was practicing my choice. Grandma June shuffled to the mic when the coordinator said we'd try a short reading. She didn't bring paper. She brought presents. A wedding, she said, voice steady, is the day you decide who gets keys to your house and who gets visiting hours. People laughed soft, the way relief sounds. I glanced at Paige. She pressed her lips together so she wouldn't cry. The quartet kept playing. Our day had a spine.at lunch. I opened my email and nearly choked on the subject line. Notice of family obligation. My parents had hired a lawyer, cousin adjacent, from the Christmas parties to send a dressed up letter quoting customary contributions and long-standing understandings about children covering reasonable costs of parental travel for milestone events. The last paragraph suggested failure to resolve amicably could result in reputational harm within the family. They CC'd 3 relatives like it was a press release. Paige read it over my shoulder and said, very calmly, "This is an invoice in a suit." She forwarded it to our coordinator with a single line. "Please move all communication about absences to me. Ryan's rehearsing a marriage, not a debate." The coordinator replied with a thumbs-up emoji and a sentence I want to embroider someday. Joy is the client. I put my phone face down and tried to chew. It buzzed again. A forwarded spa confirmation from my mother. Reminder, couples massage Saturday, 4:30 p.m. A timestamp that sat on top of our vow time like a foot. The email had a note to her friend. We'll toast after. He'll understand one day. There it was, not a conflict, a choice. I made more of mine. I emailed the officiant and asked him to swap the parents' blessing for a circle of care moment where Grandma June would place her hand on our joined hands for 10 seconds. He loved it. He changed the script. Space opened where guilt used to live. That night, my dad sent a text. No greetings. Just math. As discussed, flights plus hotel total $1,972.44. Due on receipt. I typed declined, deleted it, and wrote, "We don't reimburse boycotts." He replied with a screenshot of a family group chat I wasn't in, where my mom posted, "Pray for us. Ryan is shutting us out." Underneath, 2 ants dropped heart emojis, and "God sees your sacrifice." Sacrifice. Like skipping your son's wedding is martyrdom if the beach view is nice. Something in me clicked from hurt into anti-theft mode. I opened my care versus cost folder and added 3 new files: the lawyer letter, the massage timestamp, and the group chat prayer. Then I drafted my own 1-paragraph statement I could paste into any reply, calm as a rulebook. We welcome anyone who chooses to attend without conditions. We do not fund absences, reimburse boycotts, or renegotiate boundaries. We are not angry. We are busy getting married. I sent it to my parents and CC'd the lawyer. I didn't wait for a reaction. I took Paige's hand and looped the rehearsal again until the room knew our steps better than our story.at home. There was one more seat to fill. I called Coach Martinez, my high school music teacher who used to clap for one kid longer than the rest because he knew some of us didn't hear much clapping at home. Front row. I asked, "I can pay for your tie." He laughed and said, "I'll wear my lucky one." Sometimes you don't replace parents with other parents. You fill their shape with people who showed up when they didn't have to. We went to bed early because peace is a habit too. At 11:17 p.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Grandma June. a photo of her shoes by the door, sensible and polished, and a line that made me smile into the pillow. Keys packed. 5 minutes later, another buzz. My mother. A last try at rewriting the world. We'll swing by the venue after the ceremony for photos. Please have envelopes ready. I stared at it until the absurdity stopped being funny. Then I turned my phone off, put it face down, and set my alarm. Tomorrow, I'd print programs without their names and order 2 extra chairs for the people who'd earned them 10 times over in courtesy envelopes and empty seats, just a door that opens for whoever actually knocks. I printed the programs at 7:10 a.m. Thick paper, clean ink, no ghosts. Under honors, we swapped parents' blessing for circle of care. Grandma June got her own line. Uncle David was listed as the arm that would bring me down the aisle. No asterisks. No, with regrets. No blank spaces pretending to be poetry at 8 o'clock. I sent one message to the entire family list. No threads. No replies, all traps. We welcome anyone who chooses to attend without conditions. We don't fund absences, reimburse boycotts, or reopen the guest list. We're not angry. We're getting married. See you if you come. 30 seconds later, my dad texted privately. Then give me 2 minutes at the reception. I'll restore peace with a toast. 2 minutes is a lifetime when the wrong person holds a microphone. I told the coordinator to remove open mic toast from the run of show and put Coach Martinez on the backup speech list, the man who clapped the loudest when I was 16 could handle 60 seconds better than a man who billed me for not clapping back. At 10:15. The florist pinned Grandma's corsage and her hands shook only once when she asked where she should sit so she could see me breathe. Right aisle, I said. Front. She patted my cheek like she was smoothing out a rumor. Uncle David practiced our walk twice, then once more just to feel the floor. The quartet tuned. The room settled into that fragile hum a ceremony gets before it's official. Then my phone lit up with a screenshot from the resort, forwarded by a cousin who still carries a conscience. Mom and Dad in sunglasses, mimosas high, the view behind them as blue as a lie. Caption: Our sacrifice. Time-stamped exactly when our vows would start. The comments were hearts and so brave, and one he'll understand someday. Sacrifice doesn't come with a daybed. I set my phone face down and tightened the knot on my tie. Paige touched my arm and said, "We protect the joy." Full stop. The coordinator nodded like a metronome. Joy is the client. At 12:40. The venue manager pulled me aside, brow furrowed. Heads up, she said. Someone used an email that matches your father's name to submit a vendor portal request for a 7:45 parents' toast and 2 VIP seats to be held at the back until the last minute. We declined, but they have our address and might try the side gate. I pictured 2 empty chairs pushing their way into a room that had already learned to stand without them. I told security to use a simple rule. Names at the door match the list or they wait outside. No drama, no scene, just accurate. At 1:10, I tucked the programs into a basket. At 1:15, Coach texted a photo of his lucky tie. At 1:20, Grandma June asked if she could keep the circle of care card after. It belongs on my fridge, she said. At 1:23, Uncle David squeezed my arm and whispered, "Keys and visiting hours," and I almost laughed, which is the only way to keep from crying when a sentence fits. To 1:27. My phone rang with an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered, "Mr. Ryan?" A polite voice said, "This is billing from the Seabreeze Resort. Your parents asked us to put their charges on your card on file. They gave your email. We just need verbal authorization." It was like the invoice had grown a voice. "You don't have authorization," I said. "You never will." There was a pause, then the soft apology of a person whose job is to absorb decisions. Understood. We'll note it. I hung up and looked down the aisle. We'd measured with tape and hope. The string quartet lifted their bows. The coordinator held up one finger. The doors would open in a breath. My phone buzzed one more time. The venue gate. 2 guests informal, we're at the side entrance requesting late seating. They say they're the parents and have a photographer. Proceed. I took a breath that reached my shoes. Hold them. I texted back. No seating, no photos, no toast. If they want to attend without conditions, they can come through the front like everyone else after the ceremony. The coordinator nodded to the quartet. The doors began to open. The quartet lifted. The doors opened, and the room breathed in. Uncle David took my arm, steady as a handrail. We walked. On the front row, Grandma June sat where the light could find her. When we reached the steps, she stood, placed her palm over our joined hands, and the room went quiet the way rooms do for the right thing. 10 seconds. A small eternity. The parents' blessing we cut wasn't missed. The circle of care felt like the door we needed that we spoke our vows without shaking. When I said Paige's name, the string players smiled with their eyes. When she said mine, I could feel Uncle David's grip tighten like a yes. Rings, kiss, that surprised laugh a room makes when relief lands. We turned, and the applause didn't echo. It held I in the wings, the venue manager motioned. I slipped into the foyer while the wedding party lined up for photos. 2 people stood by the side entrance in formal wear, sunlight making their sunglasses look like small shields. Behind them, a photographer with a second camera, and our cousin the lawyer holding a leather folio like a prop. Sweetheart, my mother started, already angling her body toward the nearest white wall. We can do a quick family shot, then we'll slip in for a minute, do envelopes. Wish you well. My father lifted a hand like he was calling a meeting to order. 2 minutes for a peace toast, he said. Then we all move on. The lawyer cousin half smiled, as if to imply documented closure that I glanced at their photographer, who was already checking the light. You're not on my vendor list, I told her. You won't be shooting inside today. She looked at my parents. They looked back like directors whose cast had forgotten the scene. The manager can escort us to the back, my dad said, lowering his voice as if reason lived there. No one needs to know. They'd know, I said, holding up the program. I tapped the line where parents' blessing used to be and where circle of care lived now. We already set the room. My mom tried a different hook. We sacrificed, she said. We're here now. Don't punish us for a choice, I said. Your spa time sits on top of my vows. You emailed me the invoice. The lawyer cousin opened his folio just enough to flash a letterhead. We can settle the reimbursement right here, he said. If there's a concern about optics, we'll note that the family reached an amicable. I cut him off with a sentence I'd practiced for a week. Attendance is not for sale. There's no bill to pay. There's an open door after the ceremony for anyone who comes without conditions. That's the only offer. A hush widened between us. Behind me, the muffled cheer of our guests slid under the door like sunlight. Paige's father finishing a story, kids discovering the cookie table. My life, without a script that my mother leaned in as if intimacy could bend a rule. You'll regret not having us in your album, she said. People will ask. Her voice carried the confidence of a woman who's outsourced consequences to other people's futures. They can see the truth in the program, I said, and the photos of who stood where. The venue manager stepped forward, kind and steel at once. We're happy to seat you after the couple's portraits, she said. Back row, no photography, no mic, no side doors. Or I can walk you to your car. The photographer lowered her camera a fraction. The cousin lawyer closed his folio with that soft, defeated thump paper makes when it loses. My father tried one last angle. 2 minutes, he said. For peace. Peace started at 1 p.m., I said. You missed the door. He looked at me over the top of his sunglasses like he could still pull rank with a stare. Then he saw Grandma June through the main doors, laughing with Paige's mom, her corsage bright as a stoplight. He blinked like something finally made sense and stepped back. Well, come later, he said, as if the choice were his. My mother held his arm a second too long, then signaled their photographer, who packed up without argument. The lawyer cousin muttered congratulations, like a receipt, and followed them out that I stood still until the echo of their exit stopped ringing in my rib cage. Then I walked back into the room that had learned how to hold without them. We did portraits with people who had keys, not visiting hours. Uncle David's tie slightly crooked, Coach Martinez clapping too loud. Grandma June's hand on my cheek for one shot that will be my favorite when I'm 80. We ate, we laughed, we forgot to look at the clock. During cocktail hour, a server brought a silver tray with a single white envelope on it. No handwriting on the front. Inside, a printed invoice, flights, hotel, spa, and a post-it in my mother's script. Family obligations don't expire. The tray shook in the server's hands. Do you want me to? He began. I took the envelope and slid the paper out, felt the weight of numbers that weren't mine. Then I folded it in half, tucked it under care versus cost in my jacket, and said, "Thank you for the delivery. It's not a bill." Across the room, the venue manager's radio crackled. Side gate. 2 guests returned. No camera this time. I looked at Paige. She squeezed my hand like a gavel. After the first dance, I told the manager, "If they can sit like guests." We stepped onto the dance floor as the song began, the one slow track we'd argued about until it fit. Uncle David wiped his eyes without shame. Coach tapped time on the table. Grandma June mouthed the words and patted her corsage like it could keep rhythm. Halfway through the chorus, the side doors opened quietly. 2 figures slipped into the back row. No cameras, no folios, no mimosas. They sat. They didn't clap out of turn. They didn't wave for a microphone. For the first time all day, I didn't feel a room shrinking to make space for someone else's need. It felt like the room we'd built on purpose, that I rested my forehead against Paige's and let the chorus carry us. When the song ended, the envelope in my pocket felt small enough to forget that IT wasn't. But it was just paper, and paper doesn't run the show here. The plan was simple: no open mic toasts. But halfway through dinner, Uncle David slid into the seat beside me, eyes apologetic. "Your dad asked me to ask you," he said, for 10 seconds. "Just congratulations, no extras. I think it helps the room exhale. 10 seconds is safe if you keep the clock." I said yes, with 2 rules: no stories, no advice. He nodded, relief softening his face. Paige squeezed my knee under the table like a gavel. Granted, when the band cut low for speeches, Coach Martinez did 60 seconds like he was born with a mic. To the kid who clapped for everybody else and finally let us clap for him. The room laughed, then missed it. It was the sound of a net closing under a jumper. Uncle David tapped the mic. "On behalf of the family," he said carefully, "a brief congratulations from Ryan's dad." He stressed brief the way you stress low flame to a man who burns eggs that my father stood. No sunglasses now, just the practiced calm of someone who thinks confidence is the same as permission. He took the mic, cleared his throat, and opened with, "We're so proud." Good. Then he glanced at my mother. She gave the tiniest nod. He pivoted. "Families are complicated," he said. "Sometimes misunderstandings and costs." I raised a finger, tiny and unmistakable. 10 seconds were almost gone. He pressed forward like a salesman who hears a door hinge and thinks it's a buyer. And while we navigated some expenses, and the word expenses didn't land in the room, it clanged. A murmur rose. Coach stood without waiting for the end of the sentence and began to clap, steady, loud, direct at Grandma June in the front row. The band, bless them, swelled a chord like a shield. The room turned with Coach, eyes on the woman who had placed her hand over our vows an hour ago. Grandma didn't stand. She didn't need to. She lifted her water glass, pinky out like a wink, and the place roared. Not booing, redirecting. Uncle David took the mic gently from my father's hand, as if picking up a dropped plate before it shattered, and said into the applause, "Amen to the circle of care." Then he handed the mic to the bandleader, who slid into our next cued song without leaving an air pocket for a comeback. My father looked at me, half wounded, half offended that the world had obeyed a clock he didn't set. He tried to hand me a white envelope on reflex, the way some men hand out business cards at funerals. I didn't take it. The envelope found the linen like a seagull landing where it wasn't invited. We danced, not to spite him, but because the day belonged to Joy. When the first chorus hit, I saw my mother watching from the back row, hands tied around her purse. She had the face of someone counting reasons and coming up short. After the song, the envelope had migrated back onto a silver tray via a nervous server. Inside, unsurprisingly, the printed invoice for flights plus hotel plus spa, now with a sticky note in my father's block letters, "Peace offering," and a space for my signature, like we were closing on a used car. I slid it into my jacket under care versus cost. Paper can ride around all night and still be just paper. That we did cake. We did photos. We did the part where you forget choreography and make up your own because the room keeps you up anyway. Then the venue manager found me with that face. The one professionals wear when they need to warn you without starting a fire. "Your parents asked me again about a toast," she said. I said no. "Also, our billing desk got a call. Someone tried to put 2 seats at the vendor table on your card. Says it's tradition." We declined. Tradition is a story somebody tells until it stops working. At 8:43, My phone buzzed with a push notification from my bank. Attempted charge, Seabreeze Resort, declined. They tried to push their beach back onto my tab during our reception. Paige saw it and shook her head with a half smile that said, "We're not surprised. And we're still not buying." I went looking for a quiet corner and found Grandma June sitting with Coach, trading cookie strategies. I told her thanks again for the circle. "You filled a space without making it about you," I said. She patted my hand. "Sweetheart," she said, "the trick to blessing is leaving your name out of it." Back at the table, a folded check had appeared under my dinner knife like a magician's card. From my father, memo line peace. The amount matched the resort total to the penny. It was a dare dressed as generosity. "Cash this and agree I'm right." I flipped it over and wrote, "Returned. Peace isn't a purchase." Then walked it to the venue safe with the manager as witness. We are not confused men in a parking lot. We write things down. 8912. My email pinged with a new message from my mother. Subject line for the album. Inside, 3 professional shots of them at the beach bar in formal, where with a fake ceremony, arch the resort sets up for honeymoons. Caption, "So you'll have something to remember us by." The timestamps overlapped our first dance that I didn't forward, argue, or explain. I dragged them into care versus cost, then opened a fresh note and wrote a 10-sentence statement titled, "How We Do Family Now." It wasn't for the internet. It was for me, for the next decision, for the next door with a side gate. Attendance isn't leverage. Boundaries aren't cruelty. Bills aren't apologies. That we seat who shows up. No mics for people who brought invoices. If you call it sacrifice, make sure something of yours bled. We don't reimburse boycotts that we don't barter photos for. Peace. Joy is the client. Keys or visiting. Hours. Decide before you knock. I slid the note behind my place card like a spine. We finished the night with a circle on the dance floor. Grandma in the middle. Coach clapping offbeat on purpose so we'd laugh. Uncle David trying not to cry and failing beautifully. In the far back, my parents sat like people waiting for a train that had stopped stopping there. They didn't wave. They didn't stand. For once, they didn't try to run the show. When the last song ended, the envelope in my jacket felt weightless. On our way out, my phone buzzed one more time. Resort billing again. Second attempt declined. And then an email from my father. Subject, after action notes. It began, "When you're ready to talk reputational harm." I closed it without reading the rest. Tomorrow, I'd decide whether to reply with my 10 sentences or silence. Tonight belonged to the people who clapped without a memo line at by noon the day after the wedding. My parents had already sent a 4-paragraph clarification to the entire extended family. Subject line, "What really happened?" It read like an obituary for our choices. Words like heartbroken, disrespect, and a new favorite, reputational harm. They framed their beach as quiet prayer time. They called our circle of care a last-minute stunt. My aunt forwarded it with a psalm number. As if that made the bill holy. I didn't answer point by point. I pasted the 1 paragraph I'd written for myself and hit reply all. "We welcome anyone who chooses to show up without conditions. We don't fund absences, reimburse boycotts, or barter toasts for peace. We're not angry. We're married. If you want details, ask us directly. We will not post our wedding online to defend it." Then my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't expected to see in months. Caleb, my brother. His texts usually arrived attached to a favor or a fire. This one was different. "They told me you banned me to hurt them. Is that true? If it isn't, tell me without them. I'll listen." I stared at the bubbles until they stopped. The last time Caleb and I were in the same room, he laughed when Dad called my boundaries phases. But that was before last night's Sidegate Theater. Before their invoice tried to walk into my album. Coffee, I wrote. Public place. 1 hour. No speeches. He showed up holding a shoe box like a confession. He looked older than a year ago, not tired exactly, more like someone who finally believed in gravity. We sat with our cups between us, steam going nowhere fast. "I didn't ban you to hurt them," I said. "I kept you off the list because you set fires and then throw water on yourself." I waited for the flinch. His face didn't break. He nodded like someone choosing not to lie and pulled the box closer. Inside, old family photos. Some had edges cut where people used to be. Some had sharp halos around one face and blackout bars over another. One was from a school concert where I stood with a trumpet and Caleb with a cast on his arm. Mom had written Caleb's big night. across the top, and crossed out my name in the corner with a single line you'd miss if you didn't know to look. Another from a birthday. My cake, Caleb's caption. Dad's writing on the back. We made it special for C. My name didn't fit the frame, so they trimmed it. I thought this was normal, Caleb said. Not dramatic, just clean. If they wrote it, it meant we agreed. He slid out a photo from college. Me at a recital. Caleb vanished from the edge with scissors. I started keeping the cuttings, he said. Pieces of me on the floor. He pulled a final envelope. Printed emails from last week. Mom to him. Ryan is shutting us out. If you step up, we can go as a family and he'll have to cover the cost. Dad to him. If you make amends on the day, we'll get the photo we need. The day wasn't about my vows. It was about their picture. Caleb rubbed his thumb over a crease in the paper. They told me you didn't want me there because I make you look bad, he said. But I think you didn't want me there because they used me to make you say yes. I didn't forgive him because he'd brought documents. I forgave him the exact amount it takes to start. I wanted a day with no side deals, I said. You're not a side deal. You're my brother. But I don't invite people into rooms they light and then leave. He nodded. I don't want to be the match anymore, he said. He slid a folded page across the table. It was a draft apology, not to my parents, to Paige and me. No ifs, no buts, no you know how I get. 3 sentences and a full stop. The coffee shop hum held for us. Outside, cars moved exactly the speed the sign asked them to. For the first time in a long time, Caleb looked like a person not performing a part. Just a man with a box full of proof that the frame had been lying. I want to make one thing right, he said. One you can see. He opened the lid again and took out a wedding card, the kind you buy last minute. Inside was a Polaroid of our parents at the beach bar, the one with the fake arch. On the back, Caleb had written, "This is not your album." Then he tore the photo clean in half, handed me the side without people, and put his half face down on the table like a piece of a game he was done playing till we walked to the door together. At the curb, he said, "If you invite me in next time, I'll come without conditions." He swallowed. "If you don't, I'll understand." "Next time is not a wedding," I said, "but it can be Sunday." He smiled, the kind of tired that belongs to people trying. We set a time. Back home, I put the box on our table and told Paige what was inside. We didn't turn it into a movie. We let it be cardboard and proof. Then I opened my laptop and wrote one more paragraph to the family list. We've heard talk about harm. Here's ours. We will not be harmed by invoices, letters, or side door entrances. We will answer questions in daylight. If you need a picture, take the one that exists. A room full of people who showed up when we opened the door. I hit send. The message didn't bounce. At dusk, a new email landed from my father. Cease and desist. I didn't open it. I printed it, slid it into care versus cost, and wrote on the folder tab with a pen that doesn't smear. Keys or visiting hours. Tomorrow, I'd decide who gets which. Sunday felt lighter than it had a right to. Caleb showed up on time. No entourage, no fire in his pockets. We sat on a park bench with cheap coffee and made rules like people who want the next hour to matter. Rule 1. No parents in the room when we talk. Rule 2. No old debts pretending to be love. Rule 3. If a story needs a photo to be true, it's not our story. He nodded. Then pulled out a thin photo album Grandma had rescued from a closet years ago, the one with the plastic sleeves that wrinkle when you breathe on them. No edits, he said, like an oath. We slid in a new picture from yesterday, Grandma June's hand on our joined hands. The plastic rippled and settled. The page looked finished in a way I can't explain. On our walk back to the car, the mailman waved and handed me a thick envelope with my last name printed too big. Inside, a demand letter from our cousin the lawyer, this time on a heavy letterhead that thought it could bully the sun. Words like obligation, custom, damages, and a total at the bottom that matched the resort. Billed down to the cent. It gave us 5 days to reconcile, or they'd escalate. It was an invoice. Wearing courtroom perfume. I didn't pace. I opened my folder, care versus cost, and slid the letter in on top. Then I wrote one reply without heat. Attendance is not a service we purchase. Your clients chose not to come and asked us to fund their choice. We decline and will continue to decline. Do not contact our vendors or attempt charges on our accounts. For any further communication, we request daylight. 1 meeting, 1 table. 3 rules. No invoices, no toasts, no side doors. I CC'd the venue manager. the bank's fraud address, and, on purpose, Caleb. I hit send. A minute later, he texted one word: daylight. At home, Paige and I set two things on our kitchen table, like paperwork for a life we actually wanted. The Circle of Care card. Grandma had already mailed it to us with a note: on your fridge, please, and the seating chart with Uncle David's name in ink. It looked like a map that finally told the truth. Then we picked a date and sent one message to my parents through the cousin lawyer so it wouldn't get lost in their theatrics. Wednesday, 12 o'clock, our living room. No lawyers, no cameras, no envelopes. You may attend as guests, not directors. You will not speak at us. You will answer 3 questions in order. I printed 3 index cards and wrote the questions in black marker. Why did you send the invoice? Why did you call a boycott a sacrifice? What does showing up look like when it costs you something? I set the cards under the magnet Grandma gave us the year we moved in, a tiny ceramic key. Across from them, I taped my 10-sentence note: how we do family now. The apartment felt prepared. Not armed. At dusk, my phone pinged. A calendar invite from the cousin lawyer titled Reputational Discussion. I declined and sent the time back with our title: Keys or Visiting Hours. He wrote, "They won't agree to terms." I answered, "Then they don't come." 5 minutes later, an email from my father arrived. No subject line, no greeting, just a sentence that sounded like it had been reheated since yesterday. "We'll see you Wednesday." Then, a second line like a reflex he couldn't unlearn: "Bring the envelopes." I didn't reply. I took the envelope they'd slipped under my knife last night, the one I'd labeled just paper, and I set it on the table next to the keys magnet. Caleb watched me do it like a witness. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. We cleaned the living room the way you clean for a hard talk. Coasters out, chairs squared, no clutter they can point at to change the subject. Paige put fresh water on the coffee table. I opened the window. The room breathed. Before bed, I texted Grandma June a single line: Wednesday noon. We'll keep the light on. She sent back a heart and a key emoji. It felt like someone locking a door gently from the inside. That I fell asleep thinking of 2 chairs that might finally hold people instead of performances. And if they didn't, I had a fridge full of sentences and a house that knew where its keys were. Wednesday, 11:59 a.m. The apartment looked like a courtroom that serves soup. Chairs squared, water poured, cookies on a plate because kindness is not a bargaining chip. On the fridge, my 10 sentences and 3 index cards under a ceramic key. Paige sat beside me, a calm witness. Caleb took the armchair, shoe box at his feet, the one with the old photos and the cuts. The doorbell rang. My parents came without a photographer, but each carried a white envelope like sacrament. My father scanned the room, measuring angles. My mother moved toward the coffee table the way people approach a podium. "No lawyers," I said, nodding at their hands. "No cameras, no envelopes until after the 3 questions. We brought a peace offering," my father said, already choosing the word that sounds generous in a story someone else might tell. "We can start there." "We start with why," I said, and pointed to the cards. Question 1. He stared at the card stock as if it owed him money. I read it out loud so the room could hear the order. "Why did you send the invoice?" My mother answered first, voice smooth, eyes bright like they get before she rewrites a scene. "Because family obligations is not an answer," Caleb said quietly from the armchair. His tone surprised all of us, him included. He didn't look at them. He looked at the keys on the fridge magnet. "Try again." My father exhaled through his nose. "We assumed, wrongly, perhaps, that travel costs for parents were customary. We booked early. We expected reimbursement. You expected us to fund your absence," Paige said, hands folded, words neat. "And when we didn't, you tried to put charges on our accounts during our reception." My mother flinched at during. My father didn't. I turned the second card. "Why did you call a boycott a sacrifice?" The word sat between us like a brick that fit no wall. Mom reached for the envelope. Her tell when she wants to change nouns to verbs. "We came after," she said. "We slipped in quietly so as not to distract. You arrived with a photographer and a schedule," I said. "You asked for 2 minutes and a vendor table. You called a spa day prayer and labeled it sacrifice. A sacrifice is when you lose something you wanted for someone else, not when you trade a person for a view." Silence stretched until the room remembered how to swallow. Card 3. What does showing up look like when it costs you something? My father shifted like a man who hears a trick question and forgets it can also be simple. He opened his envelope, as if money might answer what his mouth couldn't. Bills touched the air. That's when Caleb leaned forward and put the shoebox on the table that he didn't speak. He lifted the lid and took out the cut edges, little paper half-moons and strips, proof of the pictures our family had edited long before Photoshop. He laid them down like a slow hand of cards. A corner with my elbow, a slice of someone's shoulder, the top of a head with my hairline. Then the photos with sharp halos and blackout bars. Then the birthday where Dad wrote, "We made it special for C." Then the recital where my name was a line through a pen stroke. "Showing up?" Caleb said, voice steady. "Looks like putting the whole picture on the table and leaving the scissors in the drawer." He looked at Mom. "You taught me cutting people out makes albums cleaner. It also makes rooms smaller." My mother's face did something I hadn't seen in years. It stopped performing. Her fingers hovered over the paper scraps and then pulled back like they'd been burned by something familiar. "I kept albums tidy," she said, but the sentence fell apart halfway through. There's a sound truth makes when it finally has a chair. It's not loud. It's not soft. It's a weight landing where it belongs. My father tried to reboot the narrative. "We can fix the album," he said. "We brought a check." "No checks," I said. "No invoices. No purchases labeled peace. Answer the question." He looked at the window. He looked at the rug. He looked at the envelope nothing would save. "Showing up means coming," he said, and even he heard how thin it was. "Showing up," Paige said, "means clapping for the kid who got married without sending him a bill for your seat." Caleb put one more thing on the table. The torn Polaroid of my parents at the resort arch, the half with no people, the half with their smiles. He slid their half back toward them. "This is not his album," he said, tapping mine. "It's yours if you want it." My mother pressed her lips together and finally, let silence be the answer she had earned. My father folded the envelope once, then again, then looked at the key magnet like it had become a judge. "We would like visiting hours," he said, the words scraped clean of theater. "If you'll have us, we'll sit where you put us. We won't ask for a mic." I didn't rush the yes. I let the room know I wasn't negotiating against my future. Then I took the ceramic key off the fridge and set it in the center of the table. "Keys or visiting hours," I said. "You just chose. We'll write the hours down." Paige wrote Sundays, 3 to 4 p.m., on the back of one of their envelopes. Daylight. No conditions. No side gate that we stood. There were no hugs, no speeches, no exchange of paper disguised as love. They left with their half of the Polaroid, and without the check they'd hoped would buy a caption. Caleb collected the scraps and slid the shoebox closed. Not to hide them, but to keep them. When the door clicked, the apartment exhaled the way rooms do when they stop auditioning and start living. Caleb looked at me like a question and a brother at the same time. "Sunday?" he asked. "Sunday," I said. That he picked up the ceramic key, weighed it in his hand, and set it back on the fridge. Inside that we ate the cookies. We drank the water that had sweated through the hard part. The envelopes on the table looked like what they were, paper that didn't get a vote. Outside, the week looked ordinary again. Inside, the album was louder and the scissors were in a drawer. Sunday, 3 p.m. They knocked like guests, not directors. Paige set out water and 2 plates. No wine, no stage. Caleb came early to help, leaving the shoebox in the hall like a coat you don't need in this weather. My parents sat in the back chairs by the window, the ones we'd chosen for visiting hours. No envelopes. No folios. My father kept his hands on his knees like a man practicing stillness. My mother looked at the circle of care card on our fridge the way people look at a church door they used to walk through and finally understand why it was locked. We didn't recap. We didn't relitigate. They said congratulations, small, late, useful. We showed them the one photo we'd printed so far, Grandma June's hand on our joined hands. My mother reached for it, then stopped, then asked, "May I?" She held it gently and gave it back, a T327. Coach Martinez stopped by with a container of leftovers and a story about the band missing a chord and saving it with a grin. He stood in the doorway and raised a glass of water. "To the couple who set a room and kept it," he said. "No mic. 10 seconds. Perfect." AT344. Grandma texted a picture of her fridge. The circle of care card sat in the center, held up by a magnet shaped like a lemon. Under it she'd written, "Keys stay inside." I showed it to the room. Nobody argued with a lemon at 358. I walked my parents to the door. Same time next week, I said. If you want the keys someday, earn them slow. No invoices, no side doors, no scripts. My father nodded like a man who finally believes in gravity. My mother touched the doorframe and left without polishing the moment. The apartment exhaled. We ate Coach's leftovers at the table where the ceramic key sat between the water rings like a promise. I took the care versus cost folder from the shelf, slid in the last two letters, and wrote closed on the tab. Not because we'd solved them, because we'd solved us. That night, I drafted one sentence and taped it inside the cabinet with the good glasses. Attendance isn't leverage. Joy is the client. When I turned off the lights, the room didn't feel like a courtroom anymore. It felt like a house that knows who gets to knock and who waits for visiting hours that we didn't fix the album. We stopped cutting it, and that's enough. Thank you for watching this story on True Tales Hub. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next story that we post new tales twice a day, and each one comes with unexpected twists you won't see coming.